Not that at all.
Far from it.
Wear orange. Is that going to be part of the deal now? So
No, you're in the wrong part of the world.
what about a turban? You ever thought about wearing a turban at all?
Yeah, I would imagine they're comfortable, huh?
I don't know. Are they? A lot of people wear them, so I guess that's the answer, yes.
So what's new?
Oh no, I'm just waiting to hear about all your exciting adventures over the last week.
Yeah, yesterday we, as you know, we went to the Western Australian Oceanarium.
Oh, okay. Whereabouts was that?
It's about, I don't know, half an hour north of Perth.
Oh, okay.
And up the north coast. And yeah, it was very interesting. Let me first. The design is, it's a lot of small, like, let's call them boxes or tanks, and each tank had coral, different types of coral. Western Australia has a very large variety of coral. And so it's very well displayed there, very well displayed. You can't imagine the quantity of different, or variety, maybe the variety of different coral. So that was a big feature for me, was the coral. And then you had a tunnel where it was taken sort of under the sea level, but it wasn't actually under the sea. It was a tank, but you went in a tunnel through the tank, if you like. And so you had fish swimming over you and on either side of you. And some of the biggest rays I've ever seen. I mean, and they told you that when you were looking through the glass, which obviously is curved because it was a tunnel, the fish are actually 2/3 the size. You see in the fish as 2/3 of their normal size. So they're actually bigger than what you see. And so, I mean, the rays, I mean, they were, I don't know, yeah, certainly, I don't know, twice my length. And of course they're round, with their tails, so they're enormous. And then they come very closely over the top of the tunnel. And so you really get a good view. I mean, you literally are only inches away from them. Okay. So that was interesting. And the way they had designed it, there was like an elevator, a flat elevator, sort of next to the one side, on the one side of the tunnel, so that you could stand on that, and it moved very slowly. So you could stand, and you weren't blocking other people, because they could get around you on the other half of the passage, which was a normal stone. Okay. And, so you could spend time just focusing on things. So it was well designed, and some really, probably the most unusual fish in some cases that I've ever seen. I mean, Cape Town has a marvelous oceanarium, and so have other places that I've been in, but there was a fish there that really, I mean, it looked like a piece of seaweed. Okay.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed. We had fish basket for lunch there, you know, strangely enough. Yeah. So so it was good. No, it was a good trip out. Yeah, I was very tired when I got back. And, so
Oh, sounds like a good day. Yeah.
it was really a good venture, and so pleased we've done that. And it was and as it turned out, I mean, not as it turned out, but it was a voucher from my children. Okay. And I think it was a Christmas present, but because of COVID and lockdown,
Yeah.
you know, it hasn't been really suiting us before now. And so next Saturday, the other half of their voucher, we're going to see a play of some description.
Okay.
And so that will be next Saturday afternoon as well. So
That sounds good.
yeah, it is. No, what's your news?
We're out of lockdown as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, so that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. So
Okay, that's great. I'm pleased to hear that. And are you able to go and see your mom or not? Still not.
I will be able to next week, but not today. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all sort of too late. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's good news. The other side of it though is like from a work perspective, they said there on Thursday, was it? Thursday or Friday? One day, might have been Friday actually, that they strongly encourage everyone to go and get vaccinated. Yeah. So I think that's the start. Oh, it's not the start, but there's going to be just more and more pressure around that sort of stuff, I guess. So a lot more to be said about that, I guess. So.
Or thought about it? I don't know. How far is your thinking going?
I haven't given it a whole lot of thought, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, like as per our conversation, my focus had been on trying to keep a strong and healthy immune system.
Yeah.
And still is, and also just being, I don't know whether cautious is the right word, but you know, like I'm happy to wear the mask, you know, and you know, sanitize and all that sort of stuff. So it's just sort of like healthy practices, but who knows, you know? So, and from all reports, you know, being vaccinated doesn't stop you from getting it. So.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
So yeah. So, but anyway, I kind of half expected that the pressure would start to rise, whether it came from government or wherever. And I think that we will see more of it from government. You know, they're talking about, on the one hand, incentives, but I guess if they're talking about carrots, they're probably still thinking about sticks as well, aren't they? You know. So.
Yeah.
So and I suppose the other thing I did think of though is like from your and Sue's perspective, whether or not they're going to try and use the visa situation as a lever, you know, as well. So,
yeah,
which makes a difficult situation, you know, doubly difficult, doesn't it? You know, so
absolutely, and you know, we listen to, you know, things like your company now is encouraging, and there's quite a lot of that here, but there's still across Australia a very large contingent of people that are adamantly against it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a peculiar discussion in one respect too, because like a lot of the government dialogue now is you know, like, oh well, if you don't like the lockdowns, then this is what you need to go and do. You know, well, it's almost like blackmail, isn't it? You know, like it's as if to say, well, if you don't go and do this, we're going to make life difficult for you. You know.
Yeah.
I mean that's you know, the open and shut of it all, isn't it? Really, you know. So, you know, sort of a, you know, a threat. You know. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where it's all going to go, but
Yeah.
and then the second part of it, I mean, they're already talking about, you know, for those that have been vaccinated, having booster shots and all that sort of stuff. I mean, they're talking about that already, but you know, what happens, you know, when, you know, the infection levels remain high or become high again, you know?
Mm.
You know, like there's no discussion around that scenario. It's just, oh, well, if you're vaccinated, then problem solved, you know? Well, clearly it won't be.
Yeah. The solution is they just treat it like a flu virus. Okay, get on with life. People who get sick, you know, go home or go to hospital, and you know, get on with life. You know, and you know, the very large. That's also it puzzles me. The very large percentage. I mean, you're talking about 99.9 people get it, and then they get over it. Okay. Now, because it's such a high percentage, you would think that intelligent people would just say, well, fine, you know, let's just open up and then see what happens. You know, let's treat the cases that are serious and yeah,
have some protocols around people who are sick, you know.
Yeah.
Which you kind of do with flu anyway. I mean, you know, they just say, you know, so.
Yes. And yeah, so, but you know, we although Sue and I discuss it, and and you and I discuss it, it's only when we are forced to make a decision that it's going to be, you know, what's the decision? You know, what is our opinion? How do we move from here? And because already my oldest daughter said last night, said, Dad, have you been vaccinated? ? Okay. And you know, so everybody's thinking about it, and all my kids are thinking about it.
Have any of them had it?
No. So yeah, I mean the one is pregnant, the other one is breastfeeding. So I mean, there weren't any other reasons. Those are good enough reasons not to you know. So, but when the whole visa thing comes up, and you know, we just wait and see. As I said to you, you know, last week as well, you know, with Sue's child coming back into the house and the grandchild here again, and it's more unpleasant than it was the first time, because he is angry, treats his mother like dirt, and talks to her like dirt. And I'm never there. Sue only just tells me about it, because you know I would certainly kick, if I heard him in front of me, I would kick him out. Okay, but you know, so that's unpleasant as well. So you know, not hearing anything about the visa, I'm not sure.
Well, in some respects, no news is good news, I think, at the moment, isn't it? You know. So.
Yes, it is, without a doubt. Without a doubt, no news is good news. I agree. But you know, sooner or later, it's going to reach a head. Okay. So, because it also, you know, we talk about, well, you know, we are living a lifestyle that we really enjoy, and we're comfortable with each other, and we're comfortable with the work we're doing, and now we've decided to sort of once a week, actually, like we did now yesterday, go out and do something specific. Historically we went out and had a cup of coffee, but now we want to go and explore Western Australia. Okay. So yesterday was the start of that, and Sue's design classes for Get Set Up about exploring Western Australia.
Oh, cool! Oh, nice.
So, and she did one on exploring Perth. So she's getting all the knowledge. So from that we know where to go to.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah.
She this afternoon she was. It was hilarious. She was busy preparing for a class, and so she was busy researching. So she typed something in for researching, and that's just what I want, that heading. And she went into it, and it was her own class. So there, she actually went in to Get Set Up, and there was her class. So Google had picked that up.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Amazing. So how's your carving, wood carving coming on?
Yeah, not too bad. I don't know, just like with the lockdown and stuff, I'd spend a bit of time in there, just sort of like cleaning up and sharpening tools and doing all that stuff that you always put off. So, so that's all good. Enjoying it, actually. So I'm looking forward to doing a bit more. So a bit like you you and Sue, in one respect, I was trying to set myself a bit of a goal to spend, a day a week or something in there if I can, and just enjoy creating things. So yeah.
Right.
And I've been doing a bit of research and looking at little, plans of things that I might be able to do, like for the grandkids or just for my own kids, or experimenting, building some pieces of furniture and stuff like that as well. So I'm sort of quite enjoying all of that. So
yeah. Okay.
It's one of those sort of activities for me that I, when I'm doing it, I tend to disappear into it, if that makes sense. So It's a good sort of sanity time. And the other time I enjoy as well is the early morning walks with the dog. I find that very, very meditative in a lot of ways. So especially on days like today, I mean, it was sort of quite cool. It was probably about 6 or 7 degrees, I suppose, about that time in the morning, but it just pure, and just clear skies, but just so the starlight and that was just amazing, in terms of all of the stars and that. So and where we are, or where I am here, it's there's not a lot of light pollution. So when you look at the stars, like particularly over the ocean, looking out over the water, sort of thing, to the east, because there's no light pollution, the light from the stars is really quite brilliant, So
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. Unless the moon's bright, then you don't.
Unless the moon's bright, but when the moon's bright, it's a feature in its own right, though, isn't it? So I think it's the new moon at the moment. So
yeah. We haven't seen the sky. We haven't seen the sun for 6 weeks, for anything more than about 15 minutes, and that's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. It's really hectic, and as I mentioned last time, in our own garden we've got a rain gauge, and July we had 400 millimeters. Okay.
Goodness, that's a lot, isn't it?
That's a hell of a lot for a garden. You just, it's and the official news was the most rain in 27 years. Okay. So there we have. I mean, it affects our walk because a lot of the paths are totally flooded, and so we got to zigzag wherever we can, as we did today. But it's I enjoy my sun. I really do. In summer, sometimes it gets too much, but I really enjoy the sun, and we don't have a house that allows us to enjoy the sun. So, if we want to find some sun to sit in, we have to sit in our garage on the road. And then get that little bit of sun that comes in. So in summer, then the opposite is it's a cooler house, obviously, because we have no windows facing in any direction other than south. Okay, we don't have east, west, or north windows. Yeah.
So what are your plans for this week? You got full schedule if you get set up?
Yeah, I'm up to date with all of that now for this week coming. I'm going to start this evening looking at the following week, and so.
And has the span of your hours changed at all?
No, the hours are exactly the same at the moment, but there's definitely a change on the horizon. We had a meeting this past week, I think on Thursday, and there were like 3 new people that had arrived on the scene, and yeah, 2 of them were existing company employees, but working on the American side, technical type people.
Yeah.
And now they were part of our meeting, and they alluded to separating America from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So not sure what that's going to mean. Okay. And I'm not sure why they're doing it. But both Sue and I don't feel comfortable about it, particularly the way it was presented to us. I wanted some minor changes done on the description of my classes, and I got a big mouthful from this new American that's there now, well, an Indian American, and demanding all sorts of things, which I just didn't have the time to give him. And so we're not sure what they're trying to do and how they're going to move forward. They don't share that sort of information,
Is that a change in itself? Because I thought they were reasonably transparent for you in the beginning.
Definitely a change in the ethos. Definitely. Sue and I, those were the words we used this morning. When we were having coffee, there's a change in the ethos, and both of us don't feel great. We both sensed it independent of each other, and they confirmed it. And so, how it's going to change and what's going to change, but I don't know. And and what the reason is. So whether the people have changed, or whether the people have decided on a new strategy, but the actual ethos has changed. And so we're just going to keep on and to see how we both so enjoy researching the classes and presenting them. We're going to keep on regardless, I think. Yeah. And,
do you think that they're trying to make more money out of it? Is that?
I'm hoping not, but yes, the answer is yes. Okay, because in his quarterly address 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was, the chairman or CEO was saying that they did a survey, and I mentioned this to you actually a little while ago. And he was saying that they did a survey, and there's what's the right word? There's discontent between some of the learners, some of the class people, because some people are just noisy and rather hollow with their questions, and some of these people dominate the classes, okay, while other people have got to tolerate them, okay. And so and these people apparently said that that we, those people would be happy to pay for a class in order to, eliminate the people who are just taking advantage of getting free classes and who are, one assumes it's them, who are making all the noise. So
that's a difficult issue too, because some of that comes down to the caliber of the leaders, doesn't it? To sort of moderate, the discussion and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and we've also got get set up assistants in our classes, so you can also, not so much the verbal, they can't monitor that, but they can, if people become disruptive or there's background noises and so on, they there to cut them out and mute them and so on. So, and they do that job, pretty well. But it's not easy, to when people dominate, it's perhaps their character, and they dominate the class or they dominate the discussion. Okay, it's not easy. Okay, because I think Sue's had a situation where she tried to, sort of quieten somebody down, and they just left the class. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, the trouble is people's behaviour online is far different than if they were in a physical group, and for some reason, some of these people think that bad behaviour can be acceptable,
Yeah.
And it's not, and I don't quite understand why they think being in an online forum allows them to behave poorly, but
yeah, I think also it's got to do with the changing of consciousness of people who have been locked down and kept away from friends and family, or I think a lot has changed in the past year with people, and
I think you're right too, because like one of the news reports, and I really resist, watching news reports because I think they're so blatantly false most times. But but on that point though, like like we had the lockdown lifted at 4 o'clock, and just when I sort of logged on to, for the conference, tonight, I noticed there was a news report there that said that all the bars and the restaurants in a certain part of Brisbane were packed. You're thinking, well, like it was 8 days, I think, like.
Yeah.
It's strange behaviour. It really is, and I sort of just has me wondering, like thinking, well, what would happen if something really serious did happen, or not if, when something serious really does happen,
Yeah. But also, is it the culture of Australians to sort of go from work and go and have a pint before going home?
It used to be, but I don't know that it still is. Yeah. I mean, there was a sort of a real drinking culture, back in the, I suppose, the 70s and 80s and that, but I don't know that that's there as much anymore, I'm sure there's an element to do that, but but a lot of it depends on living arrangements too, of course. I mean, if you've got to travel any distance to get home, then you probably can't afford it. But with the advent of like inner city living and stuff like that, maybe they do. I mean, I don't know, Apparently a lot of the apartments in this high-rise inner city living, they don't even have kitchens in them, so it all sort of encourages them to eat out.
No, don't they?
No. So it's sort of like eating out all the time, sort of thing, So
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So I mean, I don't know, but it's hard to generalize, I guess. But it is a different sort of mindset, and I wonder about it, and then part of it's probably from my own changing perspectives too, I guess. But but this sort of, it's almost like a need to be entertained, like I'm not happy just to. It was quite funny. There was well, it was rather crude, but there was this song that all of these musicians, clearly they were bored, but all these musicians did, like one of these online, things where they're on Skype or something, and it was about the lockdown, and one of the big challenges, as you're probably aware, in Sydney and Melbourne, is people just were ignoring it. They were just going out, ignoring the lockdown. So these musicians got together and wrote a song called "Stay the Fuck at Home." But it was quite funny with all the little sort of,
words in it.
Yeah, all the little anecdotes through it, But the sad thing is there was probably a lot of truth in it, though, like like you don't need to go out, you stay at home, But it just seems to be the way with some people, is they can't. They need this constant stimulation, So. And I sort of wonder about that, because you sort of think to yourself, well, where's the opportunity for spiritual reflection,
Yeah.
If it's constant, it's almost overstimulation, isn't it? Because I think, when I sort of think about some of the, like the Alatra stuff where they talk about, creative society and that, I mean, one of the lifestyle changes that I would envisage would be a greater convergence of spiritual life and day-to-day living. Whereas a lot of I think, my sense is, a lot of the modern mindset seems to be, is you have all these things compartmentalized. There's my spiritual life in that little box over there, and there's my work life here, and there's my personal life over here, and my recreation over here. And it all seems to be these little compartments that people seem to have, and it's almost like pulling a shoebox off a shelf. Like, okay, well, I'm finished my work for the day, so I'll put that up there, and now I'll do this, and so. Whereas I think the calling to an enriched spiritual life is one of integration, isn't it? Like it's doing things mindfully, it's doing things purposefully, it's doing things gracefully. It's all of those things, isn't it? But I don't sense that that's the way of a lot of how people live at the moment.
I just don't. I don't see people. I don't interact with people other than in the classes. But that you can't tell anything from that. I get sick and tired of even turning the news on once a week. It's
well, and that's the fundamental issue, isn't it? Because we know that the news is false and manipulated and all of those things, but we also know that, like when there's a natural disaster or whatever, when people come together, like compassion and care and those sorts of things, tend to be the predominant response. So if you could tap into the way people genuinely interact with each other, or opportunities to interact with each other, it's only really the minority, are the ones that seem to get the most airtime, isn't it? Particularly through the news channels and so on.
Yeah, I agree.
So it all seems to focus on the minority. I suppose the opportunity out of out of that is it hopefully teaches people a lot about care and compassion and empathy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just all bad news, though, isn't it? It's just all bad news, and probably not the truth.
Yeah. I agree. Did you do the Alatra news forecast they wanted or chat about the weather about
yeah.
a week? Yeah.
Yeah, I did that one for them. I don't know whether they used it or not, because I think the video for that conference was about 14 hours long or something. So
okay. Yeah.
Just didn't have the appetite to watch it.
Yeah. And there's no way you can search that I know about within a video.
No, well, that's the challenge. I mean, I watched some of the. In fact, the other night I watched one of the Alatra videos. Just trying to think what it was on now, but anyway, and it was just literally Igor and I can't remember her name now. The other woman who normally does the interviewing.
Yeah.
Just having a chat over a table, sort of thing. But even with the dubbing, I find it hard to watch.
Yeah.
Because it's all out of sync. Sometimes you sort of think, oh, do I just turn the video off and just listen to the sound, or?
I turn my eyes away. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't try and watch because there's also no sort of sign language or hand language or facial expressions really. So it's
no, they don't have a lot of facial expression, do they?
No. It's the sound. The one I listened to, he was talking about. We've had a conversation since then. Otherwise, I haven't watched another one since. I went looking to see if Moya this morning. In fact, I went looking to see if Moya had published something else, but he doesn't seem to have done anything last month at all. So yeah, I must actually check with Lee and send her this evening and just see if he has done anything more.
Yeah. No, it would be good to hear more from him. That's for sure, wouldn't it? So
yeah, definitely.
But he clearly knows when the right time is, and that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's it's from his previous stuff. He said it's just not the right time for him. And he can't perhaps do what Alatra's trying to do. That's not his function. Okay. His function is people have at some point are going to have to turn back when all the proverbial hits the fan, and that all their religions and things have been of no consequence, that there will be a coming together of all the religions, and that will be Logos. Okay. So that people start realizing, and that's what I'm reading too in the Emerald Tablets. Okay, is the focus. People must focus on the attributes of God, or on God and the attributes. Like wisdom and power and love, that are.
Is there in that sort of process, like one where there is that deep questioning, like the deep questioning about, well, who am I really? And this sort of taking that back, who's asking the question, who's observing, who, like laddering that back. Is there that sort of component in it? Like, because, and the reason I asked that is there's a couple of lines, like Zen in particular, and some of the like Hindu type faiths, they're very much about breaking down, this perception of self. It's one of sort of breaking things down to get to the core, to get to the truth of the matter, And they often talk about, and I don't like the word much anymore, but when they talk about, people being enlightened, that it's a spontaneous thing, but it's not haphazard. It's spontaneous, but there still needs to be a lot of work behind it.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you strive for. It's something that just happens. But this idea of a purposeful spiritual practice is so important, and it's not something that you just do on a Sunday or a Monday or whatever. It's something that you integrate into your very being, what you do every day, moment by moment, So is that part of it? Is that what they mean by, the attributes of God, like in terms of how they live moment by moment? Is that?
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about the Emerald Tablets, because keep my mind focused on one or the other, and then talk about, unless you want me to answer. Or
No. Talk about the Emerald Tablets.
Yeah. The Emerald Tablets makes it like very clear that the powers of the darkness are just so profoundly powerful, okay, and that even Thoth, who has the freedom of the spirituality and everything, I mean, at times after that he had to run from the darkness. They wanted to evolve, just get him and capture his soul, okay, and so the emphasis, he does give some, because remember, everything is, I told you last time as well, I only read one chapter a day, okay,
Yeah.
and it's only about 4 or 5 pages, okay, and then I let it go. And now he gives a message in each chapter, but he gives the message maybe in a paragraph, and the other 4 pages are building up, telling you just here in this physical domain, just how the dark forces that are everywhere are powerful, looking to bring man down. Okay, and so he talks about, in one instance where I still haven't got my head around it, but he says, if you want to protect yourself, draw yourself into a circle. The circle is the light's defenses. Okay, it's God's defenses. It's the circle. Okay, so if you draw a circle around you, you are then safe. In a sense. Okay. Now, I have no idea to what degree he's talking about. Just draw a circle. Okay, and he said, put your hands above your head, and but then each chapter is something slightly different, and this last one was the most important attribute of God is love to your fellow man. Okay, and don't take your eye off that. Okay, don't take your eye off that, not for 1 minute. Okay, and so that like was very important in this Emerald book, in just one of the chapters. So, you know, in other words, talking about the how, you know, what to do and so on. It says, just don't take your eye off your fellow being, and just treat them like God, okay, and see them like God, and love them like God, and be there for them like God would be. You know, sort of making up my own words now, but that's like the essence of what he's saying. Now, he's also mentioned some other things in other chapters that just didn't make sense. I can't even remember them because they just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So maybe on my second read, you know.
Well, what you've said makes sense to me, because I think part of, you know, and maybe I'm showing my own sort of bias here, but part of, you know, showing love for others is to not think about yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so like part of this sort of drawing a circle around yourself, you know, I think, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you're thinking about someone or an issue or something like that, you know, it's almost this sort of like role play sort of going through your head. Whereas for me, the act of drawing a circle will be is, look, you actually don't need to do anything because it's not about me.
Yeah.
So that's the circle. Because
Yeah.
you just stop it. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, that's an interesting interpretation. Okay. Yeah.
Because, you know, like if you're worrying about, oh, you know, what if this happens, or what if that happens? Well, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all, and that's perhaps part of that darkness. There's always this urge. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't need to do anything because it's not here.
Yeah, yeah.
No, which goes to that whole idea of, you know, living in the past or worrying about the future. So then, well, it's not here. It's not here now. So I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. That's, yeah. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, you know, we are in the Iron Age, which is the final age, and it's the toughest of all tough and the darkest of all darkness of the ages, and we've landed up here, or incarnated again into this age, and it's still theoretically going to last for another 400,000 years. But Moya says absolutely not. It will never. Okay, it's got too bad, and so he says the Earth will be taken out of its orbit and wobble and all the rest of it, and people then start incarnating on Venus and continue the Iron Age on Venus. Okay, and that'll be, I guess, I'm assuming it's a different dimension. I don't know if that would be a third dimension aspect, because although Venus is our closest planet to Earth and it looks like a twin sister to Earth,
it does, and you can see it. You can see it clearly in the early morning sky as well.
Can you? Yeah.
Just hanging out there.
Yeah. But the scientists at this stage, with the Hubble telescope and other telescopes out there, have given a very, very negative thing about Venus and how hot it is, how poisonous the atmosphere is, and so on. So I guess it would have to be another dimension that we reincarnate in, to maybe a fourth dimension or a fifth dimension. But looking at a third dimension, Venus, who knows? But they haven't put down a probe into, and I find that strange. You know, they haven't put a probe down onto Venus. They've sent probes, you know, past Venus, past Mars, past Jupiter, past Pluto, you know, and picking up sort of information, but we know very little about, you know, what's below the atmosphere that we do know about. What is actually below that? So I think we're going to probably find out quite soon. I think somebody is going to push a probe down. They've got, you know, satellites circumnavigating it, but we don't seem to get much more information out of them, out of anybody about it.
So do you think that the spiritual realm operates within the 3 dimensions?
The spiritual realm, certainly, you know, the soul is experiencing an encasement in the 3rd dimension, okay, within us, okay. It has a connection on the neuter stream directly with the spiritual realms, okay. So in that sense, yes. Okay, so that's why the importance about connecting with the soul, and we can only do that through feelings. Okay, we can't do it logically. Okay, doesn't matter how much knowledge we acquire. You know, so we've got to pay more emphasis to the feelings, and then see whether you know, our feelings are being played with by our logical or demonic side, or whether it's actually soul. And so it's something that I've always had difficulty with, because, you know, again, the demonic side is so clever. So, you know, they know just, I say they just to be a personified. That evil force can really capture you through your feelings. And,
it can, and I think, well, in one sense, perhaps capture you through your thoughts, and confuse you to think that your thoughts are your emotions, because they're not.
Yeah.
And that sort of is the bit that's sort of been exercising my mind a lot lately about, you know, keep your eye on your fellow man, and love. Well, love is a feeling.
Yeah.
And love is not a thought. So as soon as you start thinking about things, then there's the trap. Because to think about it, you've got to put a story around it. Whereas if you don't do anything other than let your feelings emerge, then there's nothing more you need to do, is there, really, you know?
Yeah, but if you, you know, if you're thinking about your fellow man, I mean, you're thinking, okay, you're not necessarily feeling about your fellow man. So let's, I don't know, you think that somebody comes into your house and you now have negative thoughts about that person.
You know? One of the ancient Hindu greetings was Namaskar or Namaskaram, depending on which part of India you're in, like the north or the south. But basically, the meaning of that greeting was, you know, the divine within me acknowledges the divine within you.
Yeah.
So that was the way that they greeted people. It wasn't, oh, look at this person wearing their green turban, or it wasn't, look at this person with the really dark skin. It was, the divine within me acknowledges the divine within you.
Yeah.
And over time, I think that's lost its meaning and reason for being, because, you know, clearly when people meet people, the first thing they do is judge them, or, you know, and some people like to call it intuition, but I think hasn't got to intuition. I think it's just got oh, look at this. Prejudice, you know, look at this, you know. And the reference point is always me, isn't it, you know? Oh, you know, look at this, look at this, look at this. You know, so
I can look at I look at a let's say a video, okay, of a person, and I get a feeling, okay. Now I don't know whether that's intuition or you know, and how to rate that, okay.
Well, I think that's the tricky bit. You get the feeling, but then you don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, but that feeling could lead to a negative aspect or a positive aspect.
Could do, but as I sort of think I said to you once before, sometimes if it's like a negative feeling, instead of making that story about that person, you know, what I've sort of been doing as a practice is I just turn it around and say, well, why are you feeling that way? What are you, and this is my language, what are you standing on which makes you feel judgmental or fearful or whatever the feeling is, you know?
Yeah, I go along with that, but let's just take something that I mentioned earlier in the conversation we had the meeting with Get Set Up, okay, and we had 3 people, new people, totally never seen them in my life before, on the Zoom meeting, and the one was an Australian woman, okay, and I looked and felt absolutely nothing, okay, and like totally neutral. But then the other 2 men, the one I sort of just before they opened their mouths, okay, I liked the one immediately, and the other one I thought I just feel strange, okay, when I look at him, okay, so now. You know, I don't know what those things really mean, and they might well prejudice my behavior towards them in the future. Well, historically they have, not with those people, but with other people. So, yeah, that's why I say it's difficult for me to. So I go to where I physically feel. Okay, and that's become more pronounced in 2021 than it ever has in the past. Okay, so, you know, a high feeling sort of in my chest and a sort of stomach feeling or a low feeling. Not sure quite where the crossover is, and so yeah. So I try and relate it to an actual physical feeling, whether if I sense without saying anything to anybody, I just sense something, or even if I read something, okay, and I get that feeling, you know, in either of those 2 places, they need to think that the one is like a communication from my higher self. Okay, but
I think you're right, but I think the ones that I find more challenging though are the ones who are in your face.
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, if I'm having a conversation with someone, you know, and they'd say, oh, you know, so I want this, and you just say, well, you know, I want a spare part for my machine. Okay, well, what sort of machine have you got? Well, I don't know. Shouldn't matter. So I know. Well, actually does. You know, they're all different. You know.
Yeah.
Well, don't you know? I says, not without you telling me a bit more about it. You know. So,
yeah.
Well, that's ridiculous. You know, like, you know, surely they're all the same. They all look the same. Well, I've looked at a picture of them. They all look the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess you could say that about cars too, but they're not. You know? Well, you're not being very helpful here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can only work on what you give me, you know.
Yeah.
And you're not giving me much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now that conversation could go a lot of different ways, couldn't it? You know, it's just like
Sure. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So it's almost like, you know, from a cricket analogy, it's just the straight bat, isn't it? It's just like, yeah, whatever. Throw what you like, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's tricky though, because we can feel as spiritual as we like, but sometimes 20 minutes later, something's hijacked your head.
Yeah. Hijacked.
And it could be the most stupid thing.
Yeah.
Which then, for me, if I cycle around and say, okay, well, look at the Moyas or look at Sadhgurus or whoever, the Eagles, the mental discipline and the mental strength that they have. When you see the sorts of questions that they get asked and how they respond to those questions, and that, you think, goodness, just one of admiration, isn't it? In terms of just the ability just to instantly respond to stuff, and I guess they just see things so clearly that it's second nature, isn't it? As obvious as, well, don't put your hand in the flame, you'll get burnt.
Yeah. It's interesting. It makes you think about the people you've mentioned. Are they really making a difference on the planet? I don't know. I suppose there must be.
I think I've thought about that a lot myself, actually, and I sort of think a big part of that is just shining a light for people to see some other things that they wouldn't ordinarily see. But it's like an invitation, isn't it? Like an invitation to actually go and do something, to undertake a spiritual practice. And that's something that you need to integrate into your life. So part of that, I don't know whether you're sort of like the equivalent of like an evangelism or whatever, but there seems to be, they seem to appear in people's lives at the perfect timing for them to hear a particular message. But hearing that message then gives them an opportunity to make some decisions. Okay, do I want to explore this further? Or do I just want to ignore it and keep on cycling around through this circle of suffering?
Yeah, but then you get hooked into a dogma.
Well, I think there's the trap for some people is they then treat it as spiritual entertainment.
Well, even if they didn't, okay, if they think, well, I want to get out of this painful life, so therefore I'll go and do these things. And
is that what happens? Like, you think about your own spirituality classes that you've been doing. It seems to be people are they're looking for something. There seems to be this search on. They're disillusioned with something, or they're hurting, or whatever. But it seems to be that they're looking, isn't it? It seems to that if you look at it, at some point they've made some sort of decision to say, I'm dissatisfied with this, there must be something else. And so then they start looking. And so that if they come across one of these videos or a book or whatever, then it probably hits a chord with them because it's providing an alternative for them that they hadn't been aware of before. But having then seen that, they need to make more decisions, don't they? Whether they want to follow that line of inquiry or not. So, and that's where I think some people get into a trap. is like, oh, I saw this wonderful video of Moya or whoever, or Igor or whatever, and then I personally, not in the sense of criticizing, but I see it a lot in the Alatra group. Oh, the next video is coming. The next video is coming. Oh, this, oh, it's wonderful, and make sure you like it and all that sort of stuff. It's like, well, that's not a spiritual practice.
Yeah, yeah.
That's social media 101. That's what that is.
But see, what they're doing is what I think all disciples have done historically. Is that they worship the man. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing you can do.
Well, but is it for them? You see, and it's even when we get more subtle than worshiping the man. Okay, and that's what I was alluding to a moment ago. We can now, the man teaches us some things, and we now.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that though that Moya doesn't want to be worshipped.
No, and he makes that very, very clear, adamantly clear, and but he also, he's written the books. He says, basically contemplate on God. Okay, that's it. Okay, he says be careful of meditation. You get the dark forces that can interfere with you when you meditate. So contemplate. So you have a focus on your contemplation. So, and he give you some examples, for example. And so, so you constantly are striving all the time to think about the qualities of God or of God Himself, for example. You're not going to stop reincarnating. You're creating karma now all the time, just put your mind on God. Okay, and the Emerald Tablet says, "Put your mind and love on people," which I guess is very similar, because you really are honoring the soul in the other person, I guess. So. Yeah, that's what I meant when I said, you first worship the person historically when we talk about Jesus and Buddha and the others, and then we start practicing what they teach. That's a subtle difference, maybe. I don't think there is a difference. And then what? Okay.
I'm pretty sure, though, that if you looked at some of those sort of original teachings, that Christ never wanted to be worshipped. I know the Buddhists certainly didn't, because he even went as far as to say that he said, that in some of his teachings.
Stop them, Don. That of course they don't want to be worshipped because they're such high entities. Okay. Yeah. Christ said it. He didn't want to be. Okay. But that doesn't stop man from missing the boat. Okay. And all these churches, Christian churches that but pictures up of Christ, and they bow in front of them, and they say everything they say about the Christ. That's the point. They worshiping the person as if mentioning their name is enough to get salvation. That's what
I recall a video that Sadhguru did in America, in the Southern Heartlands, and you could hear the gasps in the audience because he said, Jesus is not a good man. And you could hear the gasps. He says he's a fantastic man, but he's not a good man. And there was quite a dialogue around it, but you're actually not worshipping the man, you're worshipping the qualities that he's pointing to, So, and that's the other tricky bit about a lot of spiritual practices, is that the spiritual feelings are not things that you can actually describe. I mean, words can't convey the meaning. So it's quite ineffable, So, and that's the challenge, that with some of these so-called teachers and teachings, people fall in love with the teacher, not the teaching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's the older the teacher is, or the longer he's been dead, the worse it becomes.
Oh, well, I mean, dead people are safe, aren't they?
Yeah, but the people that are alive, they carry on and to the extreme of worshiping now. But anyway,
and that's why when people die, that they, the practices are to burn them or bury them deep or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't want to risk them coming back, So. Because when they stay away, you can say nice things about them. Isn't that the story? That a mother goes to a cemetery and she takes her children with her, and she's there kneeling before a headstone or whatever, and the children are walking around the graveyard, and one of the children says, "Where do they bury the bad people?" Because all the headstones just say glowing things about the dead people. So once you're gone, it's easy to speak nicely of them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyway, I should let you go. So.
Yeah, I should let you go and shave.
Do you think I should? Do you? I probably should. I've actually got to go back to work tomorrow. So.
Okay. Are you going back to work or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, I better go and do
that.
Although, is that just one of your social norms, that you're conditioned with, that shaving is an important activity? I mean, are you feeling like a sheep in that regard?
Yeah. Why do you put trousers on? It's a social norm, right?
No, so I don't get cold.
Anyway, yeah.
Very good.
Chat to you on Wednesday.
You certainly will. Okay, then. You take care.
Okay. Thanks very much for the evening, man.
Okay.
Cheers.
You too. Okay. Bye now.
Bye.